Hey everyone, I'm Ben, the amateur exegete, and this is episode 68 of Bible Study for Amateurs. Today's episode is Elizabeth Shively's Purification of the Body and the Reign of God in the Gospel of Mark, Part 2. If you are willing, you can make me clean, a man says to Jesus in Mark chapter 1, verse 40. Readers of translations like the ESV, KJV, NIV, and a host of others will encounter a leper, a transliteration of the underlying Greek noun lepros. As a kid, I was taught in Sunday school that the so-called lepers Jesus encountered in the Gospels would have been grotesque, veritable zombies, complete with limbs falling off and patches of skin missing. Proximity to a leper almost certainly meant catching their disease, and with it a social, if not a natural, death sentence. But this understanding of both leprosy and the condition borne by those Jesus meets and heals in the New Testament was based in misinformation. For starters, it is a myth that leprosy, that is, Hansen's disease, causes limbs to just fall off. Additionally, it isn't an easy disease to catch. According to the Center for Disease Control, 95% of people are immune to it, and even if you were to catch it, it's treatable and can even be cured. More pertinent is that while some translations render lepros as leper and the related noun lepra as leprosy, in truth, the condition behind these terms refers typically to skin disorders like psoriasis and eczema, and not Hansen's disease. Ancient writers preferred terms like elephas or elephantiasis to describe Hansen's disease, but not lepra. Had the Markan evangelist wanted to speak of Hansen's disease, he had a term available. Instead, he used a term that refers to different skin diseases. Returning to Mark chapter 1, the lepros begs Jesus to make him katharisai, an infinitive of the verb katharizo, I wash, clean, cleanse, purify. This implies, naturally, that in his current state, he is the opposite of clean. He is akathartos, a term we encountered in the previous episode, where it is used to describe a spirit Jesus encounters in a synagogue in Capernaum. Whence this language of cleanness? It helps to remember that we are reading an ancient text, and to understand it properly, we need to appreciate the social and cultural context of the world it portrays. To that end, we need to consider the language of purity and impurity, cleanness and uncleanness, as it is found in the Torah. In Leviticus chapters 13 and 14, Yahweh delivers to Moses and Aaron a series of instructions regarding what the NRSV Updated Edition translates defiling disease of the skin. That phrase is in Hebrew the noun sara'at, a term that covers a wide range of conditions that, when diagnosed by a priest, can result in a pronouncement of temeh, impure or unclean. Unhelpfully, many English translations render sara'at as leprosy, or leprous disease, or something similar. But as Matthew Thiessen observes, leprosy as we understand it, that is, Hansen's disease, did not exist in the Mediterranean world prior to the 3rd or 2nd century BCE, and thus would have been unknown to the priestly community responsible for the production of the book of Leviticus. The language of uncleanness, cleanness, purity, and impurity is found throughout Leviticus, and its meaning is sometimes misunderstood. There are basically two types of impurity in the Hebrew Bible: ritual and moral. Moral impurities could include sexual taboos, like those listed in Leviticus chapter 18, or the consulting of mediums. The only remedies for moral impurity are atonement, punishment, or exile. Ritual impurity, on the other hand, includes things like consuming a prohibited animal, giving birth, or even performing commanded cultic acts. For these, the remedies typically include waiting, washing, and sacrifice. What is important here to note is that ritual impurity and moral impurity were different, and that while moral impurity entails sinfulness, ritual impurity does not. And insofar as the purity system of ancient Judaism was about maintaining sacred boundaries, ritual impurity could become sin only if those deemed ritually impure violated those boundaries. Looking again at Sara'at in Leviticus, those deemed impure due to the condition were more or less alienated from the community, as Leviticus chapter 13 verses 45 and 46 states. He shall live alone, his dwelling shall be outside the camp, we're told. But their situation, dire as it may have been, was not without remedy. In the case that the disease healed up, chapter 14 lays out the method by which the one that had Sara'at may become ritually pure. 3 ceremonies are described that begin on the first day after the disease has gone away, continue on the 7th, and conclude on the 8th. With these rituals fulfilled, and a declaration of purity given by the priest, the person is restored to Israelite society. Those who read Leviticus in its Greek form would have found that Sara'at became the Greek lepra. The Markan evangelist was undoubtedly one who encountered the Torah in Greek. His account of Jesus' meeting with a leprous, then, is informed by the data mined from Leviticus. This is seen not only in the man's desire to be clean, and not simply healed, but also Jesus' command that the leprous go straight to a priest and make an offering in accordance with Mosaic law. In this story, then, writes Matthew Thiessen, Mark emphasizes that Jesus' actions both conform to the legislation of Leviticus and demonstrate his commitment to the temple cult and ritual purity system. But why a story about a leprous at all? In her article, Purification of the Body and the Reign of God in the Gospel of Mark, Elizabeth Shively argues that many interpreters of texts like Mark chapter 1 verses 40 through 45 and others have overlooked the import of these stories. She begins with the connection of ritual purity to the Mark and Jesus, examining first the work of New Testament scholar Jerome Nere in his article, The Idea of Purity in Mark's Gospel, that was published in Samea in 1986. Nere was himself drawing on the influential work of the late anthropologist Mary Douglas in her book, Purity and Danger. As Shively explains, Nere viewed purity as a map wherein one could find things in their proper place. Impurity, then, was when things appeared out of place. But, Nere contends, Jesus frequently violates those maps, like he does in the story we've considered today. Per Mark chapter 1 verse 41, Jesus touches the leprous, an action that would have resulted in ritual impurity. Thus, for Nere, Jesus is depicted as one who rejects purity laws, concerned more with purity of the heart than with the ritualistic boundaries of pure and impure. But Shively has a problem with this understanding of ritual purity and its relationship to the Mark and Jesus, a subject we will continue to examine next time. That's all the time we've got this week. See you next time, and remember, in the words of Richard Elliott Friedman, one does not need to deny what is troubling about the Bible in order to pay respect to what is heartening. Thanks for stopping by.